Gonna say like change is the only constant. I feel like I've so much change has happened in my life. So I told you 18 years I grew up in Jakarta, Indonesia, and then I moved to Singapore for my undergrad. I worked there for a bit, and then I've had to kind of, because of COVID, obviously that affected all of us. That led me to have to go back home to Indonesia. And I was bored in Indonesia, and then I wanted to go to somewhere else. So I kind of followed my brother to the United Kingdom, and I know, and now I'm in the UK, and it's crazy because now I'm going back to Indonesia again. So I feel like change is the only constant, but also adaptability is a very important skill to have, because that's I think the only thing like that's like people skills. That's also emotional intelligence. Like these are kind of this is actually what makes us the essence of a human, right? Being able to be adaptable. Like it's not always about, tangible things, but it's not always about materialistic things. It's about also having that intelligence to be able to go through change.
3, 2, 1. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Jeoffrey Sarpong podcast. Today, I'm here with Meg. Meg, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Oh my God, I keep looking at this view. I have to keep focused. Okay, yes. But yeah, so we're here today with Meg. First off, to start correctly, Meg, how do we know each other?
We know each other from work. You're one of my work besties.
We are work besties. And I'm so glad to be doing this because I think, like, obviously, as we're work besties, we talk a lot about many different things. We have many things in common. And I love having people like that on this podcast, people like you especially, because I know that our conversations always span many, many different things. And like that, I know that we're both going through a lot of change, especially for me now. So I thought it would be good to get you on this podcast to just talk about those kind of changes, but also just different things that we've gone through in our lives and cultures and stuff like that.
I was going to say we have a lot of things in common, but we also have a lot of things that are different.
100%. And that's what makes an interesting conversation, right? Because like that kind of like, I always look at it as like a Venn diagram, like two circles and just the thing in the middle. But one of the things that, one of the reasons why I have this conversation is because like currently I'm going through a lot of change. Change comes for us all, but I think adapting to that change has been difficult for me. And one of the ways that I've kind of done that is through your advice and your just being there for me, which is super, super helpful. But yeah, I wanted to get on here to talk about that, so I think other people out there can relate to when they're going through change, how to view it, how to do stuff like that. So one of the first questions I had on here was like, what's one decision, if you think back to where I think change always starts from, is us making a decision in our life, and then from there we kind of like take that and then we kind of ride that wave. So from that perspective, what's one decision that you made early on in your life that at the time you didn't understand the impact it would have, and how has that kind of changed for you?
So it's really interesting you said that, because I'm thinking back to when I'm 16 and I'm, in school, in high school, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with my life? Like, what bachelor's degree am I going to do? And to be honest, I was clueless. Like, the internet was there, but I just, didn't know. Like, compared to obviously the generation today, I feel like they have more resources to know what they want to do very early in life. But I think I was a bit naive back then. So one of the things that I kind of decided was to do my degree in psychology. The only reason I said that that's a bit of a weird one is because that's kind of what led me to where I am today. Yeah.
Let's start there. Like, why did you decide to do psychology?
To be very honest, I did it for probably the most desperate decisions. Like, I did not know what I was going to do with my life. I was 17 and...
That's all of us, to be fair.
Yeah. And I just needed to pick a degree, and I had to pick psychology because I felt like growing up I was quite an emotional person. I always found it very interesting to look at how the human brain works and study that a lot further. Bio was actually my favorite subject back when I was at school, so I thought doing psychology would let me not just learn about the human body, but even learn about myself on a bigger level. So I think that's actually one of the decisions that is kind of like brought me to where I am today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's stay there then. I think that's an interesting perspective to go for. So psychology, let's start there. You said you made the decision because you thought it would help you understand more of yourself, and I think I had the same realization too. So I did psychology in A levels, so that's like when I was like 17 kind of age, because I had the same thing. I was like, if I could understand other people, then maybe I can understand myself, and like psychology would help. When I got into psychology, I realized a lot of it was about like, especially the one that I did, was about learning about studies and like brain and all this stuff. It was not really about like therapy and like all of that stuff there. So what was your experience like in psychology? And also talk a little bit about that. Was it like in Indonesia and Jakarta? And like, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah. So I actually did my bachelor's degree in Singapore. I went to a university called Singapore Institute of Management. And going into this degree, obviously, I did not know what I was expecting because I learned a million different modules. Like at uni, we have 3 years to study something. So I did like biopsychology, I did abnormal psychology, I did clinical psychology. And genuinely, at the end of the degree, I thought I was going to go into the counselor clinical psychology route. But what, obviously right now I work in market research. Like we work together, and there's an element of that is psychology because that's consumer psychology. But why I want to say that this kind of impacted where I am today is because I'm just wondering, have I made the right decision? There are it's not like it's human nature to obviously compare ourselves to other people, but is this actually what I really wanted to do, or is this something I did because I was just clueless when I was younger? Obviously right now I look at other people who are lawyers, doctors, and everything, and I'm like, I don't think what I'm doing is as reputable or as useful as other people. So yeah, it just brings me to a lot of thinking. But sorry, to clarify, I actually studied in Singapore. Yeah. So I did my bachelor's degree in Singapore. So I actually lived in Indonesia for 18 years of my life, and then went to uni in Singapore, and that was kind of the first time I left my little cocoon and my little home, and yeah.
What was it like studying psychology? Thank you for doing it, but you don't have to do it now.
Okay, cool.
What was it like kind of studying psychology? Was it like what you expected, or was it a bit different from what you thought it would be?
It was a bit different, to be honest, because I did learn a lot about psychiatric disorders, mental illnesses, and I think it's a very complex subject that you don't really realize how much you learn about these things, but that also kind of helped you realize a lot of things about other people and what you're going through, because you find a lot of times you find yourself like internalizing some of the things. Like for example, you learn about this thing called generalized anxiety disorder. It's just this like fancy term in a textbook, but then on a day to day, I'm just thinking like, I'm so anxious, like I have palpitations, I have just kind of going through stuff, and oh my god, I probably have GAD. So that's kind of like what psychology did to me in like a personal aspect, because I feel like you start also the flip side of it is you start internalizing what you might have, and that kind of freaks you out a little bit. Yeah.
Did it give you any, because like I've got that too, because like for me, right, when I learned it in A levels, it really helped me, kind of like you said, internalize some of the things I was going through. Maybe I kind of like misdiagnosed myself a lot of times.
No way. What did you do? Like, what kind of diagnosis?
So it would be funny because it would be like, because I would be like, okay, cool. Because I remember learning about Freud and like dreams and like all this stuff and like, the Freudian theories and like the mother Oedipus theory and all these things. I was like, that's not me. But like a lot of his talk about dreams and like how we kind of like take our experiences and how that affects us as we grow older and stuff like that. I started to look at that as like, okay, that's the truth. And I think a lot of the parts, because I think going into it, I wanted to understand other people from a perspective of how do I relate to other people. And I think I used psychology as a way to do it. But because I didn't really like care much about the subject, I kind of stopped, like I didn't like carry on doing it afterwards. And I think I learned it very, very little. And so from that perspective, for me, psychology was always an interesting subject. But I wanted to kind of look at it from the perspective of like, how do I use what I've learned in psychology to better my life? But I didn't really do that because in the end, I didn't see what the studies they had in that as like relatable to me.
Actually, to add on that, I thought I wanted to use it to better other people's life. But I remember I was doing an internship in this like counseling place, and I was kind of looking at all these like drug addicts and schizophrenics and alcoholics, and I remember coming home from that internship every single day thinking, oh my god, I can't do this for a living. I actually can't. Like I'm going home, I'm carrying baggage, I'm carrying so much, I feel so much compassion fatigue. That's actually what I did my dissertation on. But yeah, I just kind of brought home a lot of these people's stuff, and that's when I realized, okay, I think I'm going to try to use psychology in a more corporate way. And that's basically where I am today.
I'm interested in what is compassion fatigue? What is that?
Compassion fatigue is essentially this thing where it's not just a psychology thing for people who work obviously in the mental health sphere, but it also works in nurses go through compassion fatigue because they take care of patients. For example, any service providing industry will go through compassion fatigue because you're just kind of listening to people's kind of complaints in life and their problems in life. And doctors go through compassion fatigue because everyone comes in and they're just ill all the time, and they just go home and they're just like, I'm so tired of taking care of people. Like, that's literally all I do. Like, when is the time to take care of myself? So compassion fatigue is when you kind of go home and, like I said, you internalize all of these things and you just feel tired, and this actually affects how you end up running your day-to-day life. So some people, the person I spoke to, so I was working with a charity when I was in my undergrad, in my master's degree, just in London recently over here. I work with a charity called The Mix, and they essentially used to tell me that they used to feel like a lack of sleep. They used to feel like physical symptoms like tiredness. They used to stop eating. Like, you never realize that when you're taking stuff from people, you actually also kind of affect your own health on behalf of it. And I thought that was crazy.
How did you deal with that? How did you did you just get out of it, or did you just think like, I can find a way around it? How did you deal with it?
So a lot of people, obviously, not everyone has the privilege to just switch routes, switch careers the same way I did. But I already knew instantly, like, this is not what I signed up for, and I'm just going into corporate like every other person, and just using my psychology not to better other people, but using it to kind of better other companies, better other products, help businesses make money, help businesses kind of sell. Yeah.
I think that's fascinating. So, like, to come back to the question, the reason why I asked the question, sorry to take that tangent, but I just thought it was interesting. But yeah, the reason I actually asked the question, because I feel like, for me especially right now, right, I'm starting to feel much of the pressure of the decisions to make early on. So, a little bit of backstory about me. It's like when I was in when I was in uni, I chose business. So business was the degree that I did because I wasn't ready for the creative route, and I didn't want to move straight into the creative, so I did business. And so I did business for a couple of years, and I definitely feel the effects of that decision and how the life path it led me on, because it meant that the degree that I had and the experience that I had growing up was in business. And I'm reaching a stage in my life where I'm becoming more confident and more able to follow down my creative route, and I'm kind of feeling myself like, okay, cool, I have to learn how to adapt. And learning to adapt between that, and going, okay, I now have the confidence to do more creative stuff and poetry and stuff like that, and I have to change. But that decision I made when I was 18 years old, when I wasn't sure about my life and I wasn't sure about what I was to go with my life, that's still having ramifications right now. And I know right now I'm in a position in my life where I feel like that's happening again, where now I'm in that kind of crossroad where I can keep going down the creative route, I can keep going down the corporate route, I can keep going down that route, and making that decision again, whatever path I choose to take, that will affect me later on. And so I know that I'm not the only one in that position, and I just think it's so interesting that we face that pressure.
But I was going to say, like, change is the only constant. I feel like so much change has happened in my life. So I told you, 18 years, I grew up in Jakarta, Indonesia, and then I moved to Singapore for my undergrad. I worked there for a bit, and then I've had to kind of, because of COVID, obviously, that affected all of us. That led me to have to go back home to Indonesia. And I was bored in Indonesia, and then I wanted to go to somewhere else. So I kind of followed my brother to the United Kingdom, and I know, and now I'm in the UK. And it's crazy because now I'm going back to Indonesia again. So I feel like change is the only constant, but also adaptability is a very important skill to have, because I think the only thing, like, that's like people skills, that's also emotional intelligence. Like, these are kind of this is actually what makes us the essence of a human, right? Being able to be adaptable. Like, it's not always about, tangible things, but it's not always about materialistic things. It's about also having that intelligence to be able to go through change.
How do you can
Yeah.
How do you deal with that change then? If it comes to when it comes to making that decision, when it comes to making that choice, it's like a pivotal moment for you, for example, for you to go back.
Yeah.
How do you go through that process of thinking about it?
This is so interesting because copyright, this is not me. This is actually something I don't want to say something that I didn't come up with, but this has really helped me. I just feel like I have to say it. Shout out to my friend who obviously introduced this to me. But it's not just a pros cons list. I think a pros cons list would work, but I think it's very important to give weightage to your pros and to your cons. So, for example, some of the pros, just to give you an example of how I ended up doing this, was London pros, like lifestyle, and you have a job, and your managers are really great, and blah, blah, blah. And then the cons of, for example, London is like you're lonely, you're all by yourself, your family's back home. And then for Jakarta, the country I'm moving back to, the pros is like obviously my family, blah, 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 making more money, saving more. And the cons of living back there is like a lack of independence. So what I do with that pros cons list is I'm just not counting the number of pros and the number of cons. I'm actually doing a weighting. So how important is lifestyle in London? I give that a weight of +3 to -3. So yeah, lifestyle is quite important in London, so I'd give that a +3. And then, for example, how important is independence in Jakarta? I would give that like a 0, because it doesn't really matter. I'm independent. I can make my life the way I want to there as well. So I did that for every single thing on my pros cons list, and I actually gave it a weighted sum. And this is a bit funny, but I just gave it a weighted sum, and the score of whichever that was higher or lower was kind of how I actually ended up making my decision to move back home, because Jakarta scores are much higher than London scores.
And then once you made that decision, when it comes to actually actioning that decision, because like obviously you make a decision in your head and then you have to do it, and then the feelings that come after making that decision, what is that like, and how do you get through that?
I mean, honestly, I'm feeling all the feels. I'm here for like another 2.5 weeks. I'm feeling all the feels. To be honest, this is not very healthy, but I'm just numb at the moment. I'm trying to focus on work, trying to focus on meeting people, having one-on-ones with people, like what we're doing now, having more of that with other people. I'm just numbing down my feelings, but this is probably very bad advice, yeah. But I probably only feel everything when I'm on my flight.
So I say this to a lot of my friends. I say compartmentalizing your emotions is an advantage if you're self-aware. So if you're self-aware that that's what you're doing, like I'm going to feel these emotions later, that's actually an advantage, because obviously sometimes you're not ready to have all those feels because you're just not in the right state of mind, you're not in the right environment. It doesn't make sense if you can't make the decision. You're just going to think about something, you can't actually do anything about it. So actually having the ability to go, you know what, I know this feeling, I know I'm going to go through, I'm going to compartmentalize it, move on, do what I have to do, and then later on I'll come back and actually like look at it properly. That's actually a skill. So I think, I do that all the time. I do that all the time about everything I go through.
Actually, I was going to say, what also really helps me make decisions like this is also making sure that you know what to expect when you are kind of in that second place that you're in. So for example, in my situation, Jakarta, that's the place that I'm moving back to. But I'm not going to sit there and feel all the feels when I'm on the flight. I might feel it for a day or two, yes, but I know that when I go back home, I have a job lined up for me. I know I have friends there. I know my partner lives there. So it's just making sure you know what to expect. And yeah, I know whatever you're going through right now as well, it's kind of hard to know what to expect. But what I also find really helpful is if you don't know what to expect, just plan as much as you can. Have a routine, things can pop up that are expected, things can pop that are unexpected, but just making sure you know what to do from a 9 to 5. And that just helps me be comfortable with change. Expectation, to be honest. Can lead to disappointments, but you just need to know what to expect.
I agree. I think that's true. I think that's 100% true. I think like we don't know what comes with change. We always try to plan. I'm one of those people who try to plan every other outcome, trying to think, okay, I can like strategize everything.
I know this because honestly, like Jeoffrey Sarpong, like he plans every 5 minutes of his day. He has a notes, okay? He has a notes on his phone, okay? I really need to out you out because I think this is crazy.
It's not crazy. It's not crazy, guys. What's totally crazy?
7:30 a.m. I'm meditating. 7:35 I'm brushing my teeth. 7:40 I'm getting to the shower. That's literally how you plan your day. So yeah, to be honest, you are literally practicing what I've just been preaching.
Yeah. Honestly, like I think it might be a form of ADHD or like autism. To be fair, like I need that structure because I think also it's like self-imposed, and so I don't have to do it, but I do it because it just gives me enough. It feels like I get the time in my life back again. But no, it's like it's important because I feel like when you do that, sometimes like you were saying, the only thing about that that's negative is that sometimes you might be disappointed when things don't go your way, as you've seen. When things don't go my way, sometimes I'm in a mood, but most of the time I think it helps me kind of structure my day. But to kind of go back to that point where we're talking about change, I think a lot of the time that comes with, the things that we do and like what to expect and the differences between the two things that we want. So on that topic, actually, I know that you spoke about going back to Jakarta and the kind of going back to work there. I wanted to ask, what is the work culture like in Jakarta, what do you expecting to be there when you go back? And also thinking about how it's been here, how does that differentiate, or how similar is it to London?
Jakarta and London are completely different. One is in one part of the world, one is in another part of the world. Sorry, I'm quite sorry that I'm stating the obvious, but there are so many differences. I feel like over here, first and foremost, you're exposed to a diverse multitude of cultures. You literally see every ethnicity, every race, every religion. Everyone's just, pretty much like, it's such a metropolitan city. There's always things to do in London for anyone who has any interest and has any passion. Jakarta, on the other hand, I feel like probably not as diverse as I want to say that it is. Yes, there are a lot of expats, but essentially most of the people you work with are probably local, and that plays a really big role to play because you need to know the Indonesian language to be able to thrive in the workforce. English is definitely appreciated. It's always a plus point, but you need to know the local language. And it's crazy to think because in London, English is the only way things run. English, it's crazy. So I would say that's one of the biggest differences, the people, the language. But also I would say work-life balance is super, super different. I think in the UK, Europe maybe in general actually, work-life balance is a very big thing. It's very much encouraged. You clock off at 5:30 on the dot. Sometimes your managers are like, what the hell are you still doing here, In Indonesia, that's not very kind of, praised, to be honest. Regardless of which sector you're working in, to be honest. For me, leaving work at 7 or 8 is actually quite normal. Over here, they would think you're absolutely crazy. So I would say that's also quite different. And one more thing I would also say is I feel like Asia in general is a lot more conservative compared to obviously the UK, which is more westernized. So I feel like your relationship with your manager is also not as open and fluid as you would like it to be. I feel like sometimes for you to be able to grow in your career, you need to have a very supportive manager that gives you constructive feedback and feedback in general. But over there, I feel like the culture is a bit like diplomatic. They're not gonna say you're doing something right. They're not gonna say that you're doing something wrong. They're just kind of not gonna say anything. So you just don't know, what you're doing. Like I'm always just sat there like, am I doing what I'm meant to do? But over here, my managers are like, you're doing really well. This could be improved. It's just nice to have these things verbalized.
So Indonesia, could you not ask your manager for that kind of personal relationship, like ask them for advice and stuff like that?
I mean, you can, but I feel that they would have to be, they're like forced to give it to you. Like these things would happen when you're in a performance review where you're like, okay, these are things that's going to happen. This is the things you did good. This is the things you have to improve on. But I would say that, honest, open, flowing conversations is also like not really there. And also I feel like in London, I feel like there's a really big drinking culture here. Everyone just kind of goes for drinks, and that's also a chance for you to get to know your manager outside of work. So when the person you're working with, it's not like a robotic relationship where you are all I work for and I'm your employee essentially. In Indonesia, it's kind of hard to build this relationship. We go out after work. We do a lot of things, obviously, but you will find that the conversations are still quite formal. They're quite structured. You still have to be really careful about what you say, and that doesn't let you build a very authentic relationship. And that's one of the very stark differences I feel like work-wise between Indonesia and London. Nonetheless, Indonesia is a great place. I mean, it's a growing economy. We have so many startups. Everything's, if you have the money, if you have the investment, it's great for you to be able to flourish there. So I think in that sense, Indonesia is also not a very bad place.
What are some of the similarities that you find between the two different countries and work cultures? Countries and like work cultures. Is that harder to say?
It's harder to say, but actually I want to know what your perspective is, because what do you think are my similarities versus your similarities? Because I also feel like we've spoken a lot about our backgrounds at work. Obviously, we know so much about each other. What do you think are some of our similarities?
I can go. I think it's interesting for me, and also like the reason I asked this question too, because like I always ask this question to everyone. So like I have a friend in Spain who asks about culture, like work cultures and stuff like that, because I see that. Especially in London, I don't know how if London is just like unique in this aspect, but the way that we work here, the way that kind of like productivity is praised here is so unique. Like I can speak from when I go to Ghana, for example. I don't know what Indonesia is like. When I go to Ghana, they don't really care about work. They work because they have to. They work for a job. Here, it kind of becomes your identity. You know, you work and that's who you are. And when people meet you, oh, what do you do? And then straight away, they kind of make a picture of who you are based on the work that you do. And I think that, especially in places like Ghana, which the idea that I had, maybe Indonesia, because it's less westernized, you know, they maybe have that idea where it's like family is the most important thing and like community is the most important thing. But like when it comes to this, it's a bit different. And when it comes to similarities, especially in the country or work, I thought maybe, obviously you talk about how like London is so metropolitan and all this stuff like that, but within that, there's many different types of cultures. So maybe the Asian culture here is like, you know, that kind of similarity where it kind of all together, that's kind of like widespread in Indonesia, where most people will go to work or whatever, but like at their core, what they really care about is family. And like, yeah, like even though that's kind of a difference, you know, I feel like just seeing that mirror and how that mirrors, I think that's interesting.
I was going to say that's so true, because whenever, you know, I think one thing, so I work in research, and a lot of times, I feel like in the UK after the age of 18, you kind of move out, you do your own thing, you know. I think in Indonesia, a lot of your decisions are very much dictated by your family, even, until maybe you get married, and then I guess you make your decisions with your partner. But I would say that it's very interesting, because whenever I do research in London, it's a lot of times you're talking to, after a certain point, you're already talking to, like after like 10 or 11, you kind of already just directly do research with the kid, with the parent not being there. But in Indonesia, a lot of times what I face is that a lot of times like the parent still is the voice of the child, even if the child is a teenager. So I think, you know, what you say about family, like that makes so much sense. And also I'm actually Indian by ethnicity. So in that sense, I come from a country that's already quite family orientated, but I also come from an Indian culture that's also very, very like family orientated and quite conservative in that regard. So when I say London was very eye-opening for me, it really was.
Okay, let's go with that too, because to flip it on his head, then it's like, what was the most like surprising thing you found when you came to London? And I'll go first, so you kind of see. So I've said it many times in the podcast, but I came to here when I was 6 years old, so I really saw that kind of growth and like everything that I knew. It was weird because at home I was Ghanaian, but outside I was basically British. So I saw a lot of like difference in, like you were saying, like the independence is wild here. Like it's so independent, it's almost crazy. Like you can do anything, and they kind of like they force you to grow. That force you to find your own identity, find your own, like, you know, you kind of have your problems by yourself, which is actually interesting because I was speaking to a friend about this, that it feels like here most of the problems that we have are because we try to do everything by ourselves. Because we try to do every decision by ourselves. We don't really include family in our decisions. We kind of just do like, we're going to do everything by ourselves. But I think that's, even though that comes with that independence, that also comes with it. It's a detriment because we're kind of isolated instead of being raised by a village, so to speak, you know. And I think that was what I found was very interesting and a big surprise for me.
Firstly, British people drink so much tea. That was so shocking for me. I thought, like, I'm an Indian, I drink a lot of chai, but coming here, oh my God, everyone drinks tea. That's one thing. But I would say what really shocked me is some of the conversations we used to have. Because I used to tell you, like, you know, I'm actually traveling to X country, and, you know, I'm so scared because, like, my dad, he, you know, I always used to tell you this, like, I think my dad's going to kill me because I feel like I've been going on so many trips, and he thinks I'm not managing my finances accordingly. But he was like, why do you need your dad's approval? You're an adult. Like, you can make all these decisions by yourself. Why do you need to tell? That was very shocking for me. For people to come and tell me that asking your parents for things, it's not normal here. You move out at 18, that's it. You're on your own. You whether you make it, you break it, whether you're broke, whether you're not broke, everything is literally on your own. And it's such a taboo to ask for help. I think one thing I want to say that I was very shocked about is, like, I feel like people in London are quite individualistic. It's not very collectivistic. Like, Asia is very collectivistic. Like, if you're in a street, if you're like in an accident, if something happens to you, God forbid, you know, someone's going to be there to help you. But over here, I think people just kind of pass by. You mind your own business. Even if you're dying in a corner, like, no one's going to give two shits. Apologies for my language. Yeah, that's your death, literally. And I thought that was very shocking and bizarre because I come from a country or even a family, like an ethnicity that is so like, whatever you need, I'm there for you. You don't have money, like, try to make it yourself first. But if you're dying in a corner and you're broke as hell, like, don't worry, we got you.
One is better, or do you see like the positive in one's? Can you strawman the other argument for one? Say like, why is it good to be individualistic, or why is it good to be collective?
I think both are quite good in their own ways, because I think if you wanna in the future have some of your own kids, you need to be a bit more individualistic, because you need to be able to make these decisions on your own on the go. So I think in that sense, individualism is very, very important, but you always need help. Like, you can't do things on your own. Like, it's crazy. You can't just sit here and be like, yeah, I'm dying, but I will just save myself. Like, you need help. So I really think collectivism is just really, really important to also have.
Yeah, 100%. I think about this all the time. I think I've been raised it's weird too, because I was raised in a collective culture, but in a individualistic London. So it's like, I understood the reason why, like at home, everyone knows your business. Like literally everyone, your aunties, your uncles, asking about everything. And you're like, gosh, now I have to explain everything to you. And as soon as I got a bit older, I became more individualistic, kind of lived my life my own. And on the plus side, it's helped me become more of myself. I found more of my identity, because I was allowed to think for myself, make my own mistakes. But again, it's kind of led me sometimes in the wrong path, where maybe just even if I discussed it with my parents or with an auntie, they could have had that perspective, which would have helped me, like I think I wrote about this too. So when I went to Ghana, being back in that collective culture where everyone kind of knew you, who you are and what you do, it kind of like constrains your actions. But I was just thinking about it, it's like, well, if it constrains your actions and you don't want to do anything that you don't want them to know, that's probably a good thing, because you're not going to do anything that's bad, because you don't want them to talk about you negatively. But also on the plus side too, it doesn't give you the confidence and motivation to go out there and make your own life. So I think both of that is about finding the balance, like anything in life, right? Yeah. Finding the balance between finding yourself in that collective culture where you can still be yourself.
I wanted to add, actually, I feel like, I don't know how much you know about the Indian culture, but a lot of, and traditionally, like probably years and years and years ago, but also probably still happens nowadays, is that people used to live in a joint family where you're not just living with your mom and your dad and your siblings, but you're living with your mom, dad, siblings, dad's parents, and then you're also living with your dad's brother and your dad's brother's kids. And it was crazy. Everyone you're living with knows all your business. But now actually I see that things are becoming a lot more westernized. Yeah, it's a very it's quite nuclear now. So you probably just live with mom, dad, brother, sister, max to max grandparents.
Even
but that's also a bit much. But
it's not a bit much. I'm just saying, even that's so much different from what London is like. In London, it's like you move out on your own. You own your partner.
I freaking live with roommates, and it's so it's such a it's so different. I'm not being able to live with people that of. My brother lives in Manchester. I wish I could live with him, but you're at the end of the day, you just have to each its own. I feel like.
How do you think? Obviously, you've gotten that independence and you've gotten that kind of taste of that. How do you think you've grown with that independence? Do you think you found more of yourself, or do you think that that kind of independence hasn't really made any change because you're so used to being part of your family and you kind of knew who you were before you came?
Not gonna lie, one of the things on my cons list of London was like the lack of family here. I feel like, yes, I've learned how to do so much on my own, like even like basic life skills, like knowing how to cook, knowing how to clean. I've been so fortunate back home where you have people not doing it for you, but how do I say this? Just a support system that, okay, if you're tired today, like I will cook for you, don't worry about it. But then over here, no matter how tired you are, you have to cook because you need
your sister to make food for you.
Yeah, that's nice for you. So yeah, I think it's taught me a lot of independence is good because it definitely does teaches you a lot of skills that are actually transferable to your life at a later point. When you obviously have your own family in the future, you need to be able to know how to do these things for your husband, for your kids, or even for your husband doing it for you. Like, these things are just important. Like, independence is very important, but nonetheless, I miss family. I miss living with people who, like obviously people I live with care about me, but no one cares about you as much as your family would care about you.
Absolutely. I think to reflect on your time here, that you've been here, you mentioned how you're going back, but to reflect a little quickly on the time that you've had here, how do you think your experiences has shaped your, just like your life? And the reason I asked that question is because I think that sometimes the experiences that we have can help us like redirect ourselves. So, obviously you came here, you saw what it's like, you saw what's possible, you saw all of these beautiful buildings, and you saw like, the structure of our economy, our companies and stuff like that. Has that made you rethink your definition of success, or made you rethink your career choices, or maybe even the way you want your life to go?
100%. I think one thing I would say that I'm looking forward to do back home that I know is definitely not possible to do here is, start your own business. I think in London, everything is so expensive. Taxes are so high, and whatever you want to start, you need to legalize. I'm not saying you don't legalize anything in Indonesia, but, it's just easier to, start something of your own if you feel like you can deliver a particular service to someone, or even if you can forget even delivering a service. I have so many friends who, have bakeries and they just learn how to do it by themselves. I feel like there's just a lot more. Wealth of opportunity is obviously a lot more there, but the governmental regulations is also not that heavy that things like that feel impossible. So I would say, one of the things that career choices, definitely I do see myself working corporate for a couple of more years, but because I feel like now I will start living in a country, I guess permanently, that has all these wealth of opportunities, I definitely want to see myself starting something of my own. I don't know what, but I'm trying to figure that out, and I think Indonesia is just the best place to do that.
I think for me it's actually oddly similar too, because I feel like I'm at a stage in my life, like I was mentioning before, where I'm having to reinvent my career. Like obviously, like I was entered the job force a certain type of way, but now I'm a bit older, I'm a bit more experienced. I kind of know what I want to do, what I can do, what I'm capable of. And so I'm now looking around and be like, actually, I want to go more of the creative route. I want to do more of this. I want to do more poetry, whatever it is.
Just before you continue your sentence, you're really good at what you do, so I definitely think you should go on the creative route.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, you would say that, though. You're my friend, so it's a bit biased. But no, 100% agree. And I see that. I think it's helpful to have people like you around me, because you can remind me of that, because sometimes you have doubts. But no, you're 100% right, because I think it's important, too. Because I think if you have a skill and you're good at it, then you should try to make that skill what you can actually make money from. Because I think, you're more likely to be more motivated to actually make the money, but you can figure out a way to do it because you're only going to get better at that. And I think, but it's hard because some people feel like they're kind of stuck into that role, because I know a lot of people like that who started the workforce at a certain place and now they have that experience and they're just going to follow that, because where they're also going to look, they're just going to keep going down that path and they're kind of stuck on that path. What advice would you give to people like that who kind of feel like they're stuck in that path, but they want to reinvent their career, want to go somewhere else, want to do something else, but they feel like they don't know how to do it? And the reason I ask that, not to put pressure on you to have an answer that everyone will solve and everyone will understand or agree with, but I just feel like because you've had that experience of going from different countries and just just different countries and just understanding how the workforce is like here, how the workforce is like in Indonesia, and also just what's required. You kind of mentioned that when you go back, that you want to be able to take that skill.
Yeah.
You want to be able to take the skills that you've learned here and actually apply it. So you do know that something about taking the skills that you have in one place and applying it somewhere else. And you're confident able to do that, and you're able to just have that mentality. I think it's more of a mentality switch than a skills thing. Some people are not confident in themselves to just give themselves the ability to, take that jump, because that jump is what's scary. Jump into that industry not knowing that you may be able to swim, that's scary. But you do that all the time. Go from Singapore to Indonesia to London. London, for fuck's sake. You know what I mean? Like, London is crazy. Yeah. But you came here and you did it so effortlessly. Yeah. What's the kind of mental process you go through when you're about to go somewhere else and do something different?
Yeah. Firstly, I would say fake it till you make it. Confidence. Mm-hmm. I think even if you don't know how to do something, don't act like you don't know how to do it. Obviously you, how do I say this? I think, not lie also, but I think one thing that's gotten me to where I am today with regards to like moving countries and stuff is also that, I don't wanna toot my own horn, but I would say I'm quite diligent. Mm-hmm. I think diligence is probably my only advice to people that are trying to make these, moves, because like you want to move to London, for example. I wanted to move for my master's. Okay, like I'm going to go into this master's program, but am I willing to be able to balance the applications for that and my full-time job? That's also diligence there. And then I'm in London now. Am I diligent enough to make friends? That's also diligence. Or like even now that I'm working my full-time job, but I'm also looking for jobs back home because I'm on my notice. And how diligent are you to apply for jobs every day? How diligent are you to, actually go after what you want, if that makes sense? Yeah, just hardworking, diligence, that will take you a long way. And also, I feel like that fake it till you make it mentality comes from there. Because if you've done the work, if, for example, you're applying for company X and you have an interview with company X, because of your diligence, it's your diligence and like the due diligence of you researching about the company enough that will get you the job, because that's where the confidence comes from. So I would say diligence, hardworking. Actually, I want to say one thing is my dad used to tell me that the 3 things that will get you through life is just the 3 H's. And you want to know what these 3 H's are?
Go on.
Honesty, humble, honesty, and hard work. That's all you need to make it in life. And whenever I, for example, every area that I want to succeed in life, for example, even like relationships, does my partner have the 3 H's? The 3 H's always matter to me because that's kind of what the values that your parents also instill in you, if that makes sense.
And that's perfect. Yeah, remember the 3 H's, guys, because I 100% agree. 100% agree, because it's a clear indicator of the person that you are. And I think if you can keep those like front of mind, you shouldn't have any trouble in any industry that you go into. And I think is important. But you mentioned...
Sorry, to add, you wouldn't have any trouble if you have the 3 H's, but I also believe sometimes in life, everything is also very luck-driven. Everything is about... I feel I have a strong passion, and obviously what you have right now is because it was kind of determined for you. Like, it was kind of meant to be for you. Like, you're kind of fated to also have it. Like, why I say this is because, like, assuming... Yes, London seems like a really cool place. I've done my due diligence, I've done my hard work and being able to get to London. But if London was never in the cards for me, I strongly believe that this would have never happened.
Yeah. But again, like, it was you taking that due diligence to actually make that decision and find that out. I think most people, it's just probabilities, like most people have this thing about luck, but luck is done by probabilities. If you flip a coin, the more you flip the coin, the more you're likely to get that thing that you want. So it's like you just have to have the ability to just keep doing that thing. And then if you really want to over a long period of time, I think that's what all manifestation is. If you really believe you're going to do something, or you're going to act like the person that's going to do that thing every single day. And I think that life is like you have all these different paths, and if you just focus on one path and you just keep at it, regardless of all the things that could go wrong, obviously within reason and being able to adapt and think like what's your actual goal, what you're actually going for, then over a long period of time you're going to get it. But you just need to be comfortable with that long period of time. I think that's where patience come in,
Yeah. Obviously, I think I agree with you, but also at the same time, I agree, like the universe only helps those who helps themselves. But at the same time, if that's not meant for you, I still don't think as much as that's probably my own personal opinion though. As much as no matter how hard you try, I know some people who have tried to succeed in X job, Y job, whatever. They've done the due diligence, they've done the whole hard work, but they just don't succeed because it's just not destined for them. But that could be, a little bit of my religious and spirituality coming into the realm. But
I mean, it's also about like being honest with yourself too. Like that's the honesty part, right? If you're not meant for that job, it's not for you. Why are you going after that job? Do you want that job just because it looks good? Then you're not being honest with yourself. That's what you want, What you truly want, I think, is based on what you're meant to have. And I think that may come down to your skills, or may come down to like, your talents. And if that's the case, then you're going to get it, because you're just going to be so it's going to be meant for you. And I think kind of back to what you were saying, because, in your heart, that's something you're born to do, and I think people have to be honest with themselves for that, Actually speaking, you mentioned one thing about friendship and how like it's very, like in anything you need due diligence. Even when you come to London, you need due diligence to go outside and make friendship and stuff like that. What I'm finding as, even someone who's, grown up here, is that as I get older, it's harder to make friends. And I speak to a lot of my friends about this, and they just talk about all the time about how like, yes, they try, but they don't find the places to do it, because they just feel like they know their friends, they knew from high school or uni or whatever, and they kind of stick to them. And maybe don't make friends with friends, their friends, but like, it's really hard to find places and make friends. As someone who's had to do that multiple times, do you think it's hard to make genuine friendship and genuine friends when you move to a new place? And why do you think that is?
I mean, I'm just like remembering our conversation early this year. I think I was like, Jeff, like all my friends have left, like all my uni friends have left me, and I'm all alone in London now. Like, who are my friends? Yes, to your question, yes. It's so hard to make genuine friendships as you are an adult, because I feel like when you're younger, when you're at uni, everything is about party, everything is about freedom, everything is about, I don't live with my parents anymore, I'm gonna do anything, and everything is about hooking up. Like, sorry, excuse me for my language, but everything's everything's just about hooking up and the party and the club and the drugs and the alcohol and the whatever. So I just think it's so easy at that time to find like-minded people, because at that time everyone kind of wanted the same thing. But now that but then now that you are an adult with evolved preferences, with evolved wants, with evolved things that you want out of life, things that you want and expect from other people, I think it's quite hard to make genuine friendships for sure. But I think the way to go at it that I found is honestly the old school friend of a friend. I'd hang out with you and then you'd introduce me to a friend. We've done that a couple of times. I've met some of your friends. So have you met some of my friends too? And I think just that old school network of meeting people through people always helps, because then you have that common person that you are good friends with. Meeting people through work was also quite nice, and you have the privilege of working with some people and them being one of your really, really good friends as well, like you. But also I think, what I also think is that there's always also the apps, like there's that kind of Bumble BFF. But the thing with those things, or not just those things, but just making friends, even if it's with friends of friends, I also think it's about consistency. I think in an adult friendship, everyone is so busy with their own lives. They have so much happening in their 9-to-5 jobs. They want to stay fit. They want to work on their mental health. They have like so many of their own different priorities that making friends may not be everyone's priorities as well. So just making sure that if you meet someone, you need to be consistent. You need to make sure that it's also two-sided, if that makes sense. It's like, I want to see you this weekend. I'll make the effort to see you next weekend, but will you make the effort to see me the following weekend? And that's kind of also how you need to filter. But one thing I've also wanted to also share is that at the end of the day, when you're an adult, it's about quality, right? What is the point of having 50 friends? Yeah, I say that, but I kind of, still look at quantity. But I'm slowly trying to, put myself in the perspective of, yes, it's harder to make friends as an adult, but even if you have two, so what? Even if they're in another country, so what? As long as there's a quality friend that will be there for you if you're like dying on the road somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you said something that was so interesting, which I want to actually touch on. You said it's about what you expect from them. I think that's the main difference between when we're kids, where we don't expect anything from our friends. We're just like, do you want to go play football? Yes, okay, cool, let's go do it. You're now my friend. Like, I remember in school, they would literally be like, you are now my friend, and now you're just friends, because you have nothing, no expectation. But as you get older, your boundaries start to increase, and the things that you expect from your friends and the level of commitment, or like the two-way side, like you talked about, that becomes way more important. Question I had for you is that, what are some of the things that you expect from your friends? What are some other ideas or like values that you look for in friends as you get older?
Like-mindedness for sure. I think that's very, very important. So nowadays, just, I guess these days, I think I only have one ability, is like one requirement, which is the ability to go deep. Like that's all I look for in a friendship. It's not even just going to be about, I went on this date with this friend and like with this guy, blah blah blah, and then just talking about all those like surface level, meaningless shit. I need to be able to go deep. I need to be able to have conversations like the conversations we're having today, because that for me is the only requirement to have a meaningful, genuine friendship. That's probably the only expectation I have, because to expect anything more than that, or to expect anything from people in general, is quite hard, because everyone's selfish. Also, you live in London, everyone's even more selfish. So yeah, just being able to be deep with the other person, and also knowing that, if you need help, like the person will be there for you, but also knowing that the moment you don't see something working in your friendship, just having that courage to just cut the person off as well. It's about boundaries at the end of the day, like me and you both mentioned. Just making sure that if they're not meeting what you expect, it's okay to cut them off. We're not children anymore, where I'm like, I'm not your friend, and I'm also not your friend. I'm gonna tell all my other friends to not be friends with you. Like, we're grown up. We're like way past that. You just need to go deep. That's it. Yeah.
I agree with that so much. And I'm like, I'm like at the office trying to have deep conversations. Because it was like, can we just do our work, Jeff? And I'm like, no, I want to talk about real stuff because I don't understand. I understand why people have these shallow conversations because it's easy and it's comfortable. But I think we don't learn anything about people. You don't learn anything about people's perspective. I think the deeper you go, as long as you have the intellectual honesty to be like, I don't know what this person knows. I'm also an idiot. This person could teach me something new. What they're saying.
Actually, that brings me to a really good point because I feel like some people look at friendships and think of it as a transaction. I think some people are like, oh, what can you bring for me? Oh, you work in that really fancy banking job. I want to be friends with you because I want to get into your banking job. So we just need to be able to get past that transaction. And if you really feel like someone's treating you as a transaction, just cut them off.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think for me, I've spoke to you about this too. I'm learning this because I'm so like friendly. I'm like, everyone can be friends. Let's be friends with everyone. But I'm learning some people. Luckily, I'm learning at an early age. Some people just don't have that same kind of understanding about friends. They just want to have that kind of, oh yeah, we do things together, we're transactional. But I'm like, no, I want you to succeed in your life. I want you to tell me about stuff about yourself. I want to get deep, and I want consistency too. Like if you're going to be deep with me today, be deep with me also people around. You know, like that consistency is also important to me. And I think that it's so, I think people do look for that. And I think when I have those moments of like self-reflection, I go like, okay, that's what I try to provide to people, like a mirror to themselves, to their soul. Like, actually, you can be yourself. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm also an idiot, but I'm also just like, I'm myself. And if I'm able to be myself and be who I am, then you should be able to too. And I think that's all that I expect from friends. Just like, be yourself, be original. Don't be like everyone else, but also like, you know, be honest and be able to be deep. And I think that all of that ties into each other, which makes it pretty easy, you know. And I think that it is weird because I know that a lot of people do say that as they get older and older, they do find it hard to make friends because, like you said, everyone's kind of got their own thing going on. But I think people, you know, I heard this thing which is really cool, and it's like we don't make time, like there isn't time for things, you make time for things. You know, it's like people say, oh yeah, I don't have time for it. It's like, no, you make the time. You know, of course you don't have time for it because you're not making the time for it. You have to make things priority as you get older. You make your health priority. You know, you make your love life priority if you have to. You know, but you don't make your friendship a priority. And I think it's so important to have, I think, a small group of very, very close friends. You know, rather than a big group of shadow friends, because big group of shadow friends don't lead you anywhere. You don't discover anything about yourself. But you have a small group of quality friends who are there to support you, there to push you, there to allow you to be honest with yourself, there to allow you to fall down and help you pick yourself up. You know, these things are very, very important. You know, I think that, I think especially in London, like we have this kind of shallowness going on, which I don't really understand. But okay, moving on to that, I think kind of like what we talked about before, and I think one of the points that we talked about that I think is important, especially when you look for friends, but just in people, is self-awareness. I think it's so important to be self-aware of yourself. And I think the reason for that is that in this world of like, not just shallowness, but all just technological, whatever, we can like kind of look at everything, you know, kind of, we can like project an image of ourselves so much that we start to believe in the image rather than to see ourselves as we are. Having a self-awareness is so important. So what do you think about that? What do you think about self-awareness as a skill in the modern age? Do you think people have it? Do you think you have it? And how do you look for that in people or even in yourself? How do you know if you're self-aware or not?
That's a very good question. That's a tough one, actually.
I can go if you want.
Yeah, probably. I need a minute for sure.
Yeah. So for me, right, the reason, and I think this is so hilarious, right? Because I think I'm very self-aware of myself, because of the poetry, because of the writing, whatever. But that doesn't help me go through those emotions. So I might be self-aware that, okay, right now I am like going through it, like whatever. I know exactly why I'm going through it. It's because of this situation, and it's because I reacted like this to this, and I know why I reacted like this to it. I think this person is thinking this, but I know they're not thinking that. I can break it down on so many levels, psychologically, intellectually, like all of that. But that doesn't help me because I still feel those emotions. I think a lot of things about self-awareness, and I think a lot of people that I see that are self-aware, it's just like emotional honesty. It's like emotional intelligence almost, you know. It's like being able to see yourself as you are with all your faults, you know, because I think a lot of people in these days, they want to hide themselves. Not hide themselves, but like cover themselves up with an image that they think it's more palatable to you, that you're more likely to accept. But self-awareness comes in looking at yourself, right? And it is hard to say if you're self-aware or not, because everyone thinks they're self-aware, but really they're not, because they're not actually taking into account how they're affecting the people around them. They're just really just thinking themselves. It's a very thin line between self-awareness and self-indulgent. You know, you can be self-indulgent, just think about yourself, and everything is you, me. But self-awareness, understanding that, looking at yourself for your faults, for all the things that come into like in your life, and the role you play in your own suffering, the role you play in your own death, like downfall, and your own disappointment. And being able to take responsibility for that and being like, you know, that's on me. You know, that's why I'm always saying like I'm an idiot, because I do stupid stuff, but not because I'm actually an idiot. I might be an idiot, but it's like I'm aware that there are parts of me which are undeveloped, and I'm still developing that. You know, I think to even change the question a little bit, do you think self-awareness is something you develop, or do you think just something you just have naturally?
Yeah. So yes, I have my answer now. Thank you very much for giving me the time to think. So I think self-awareness was actually something I did not have as growing up, because I think I was a people pleaser. I think I used to always do, I'm not was a people pleaser, still to an extent a people pleaser. I do things as per what people want. You want to come for this? Yeah, sure. But it's actually an inconvenient time for me, but no, I'll come, because for me, like what, you know, it's important that I make you happy. Or like, even for example, something as small as like, you know, just everything is about other people and not about me. But I think what really helped me be more self-aware is went through quite a tough time, the last couple of years. You know a lot about my stuff, but I think in particular after I actually made the change from Singapore to Indonesia, the first change I ever made was that it was a bit of a shock. COVID happened, and you know, I just was forced to come back to a country that I didn't know that I want to live in or not. And I started therapy. As cliche as this sounds, therapy actually made me more self-aware. I went through 18 sessions with my soul coach, and every day we worked on everything, you know, everything in your Venn diagram of life. You have your personal relationships with yourself, your relationships with your family, relationships with your partner, but you also have, you know, home life, and you also have your mental health, you also have your physical activity. Every single realm of your life, we worked on that. Finances, work, everything. And I remember her telling me, okay, now from today we're gonna kind of work on some of your blockers. So out of this circle of life, which ones do you think you excel at? Which ones are the things that you don't really excel at? And then, I think I told her a couple of my, you know, blockers and stuff. And that's actually when I think working on that with her together, going on that journey with her, was kind of what made me a lot more self-aware. Came out of it, the 18 sessions, knowing what I wanted out of life, you know, and that self-awareness was something I carried over here, because the moment you get, it's kind of like enlightenment, you know. For me, it's like, oh my God, like my opinion is the only opinion that matters. I actually don't have to think about other people, you know. I think, I honestly recommend therapy, because it makes you go inward. It makes you think about yourself. It makes you think about uncomfortable situations. You have to open up about these like true thoughts and feelings that you never wanted to, and I think then you feel a lot more connected to yourself. But I would say one downfall of not downfall, but the problem with being self-aware is also, I feel like I've personally started to overthink a lot more. I feel like overthinking becomes such a big deal, because I start thinking like, oh, but I did this, but I should have done this, but I should have done this. Like, I'm so self-aware now that I analyze every single part of all my decisions. Like, I overthink and I internalize and blah, blah, blah. So I think just also knowing when the balance again. When should I think about this versus it's okay. Like, if you were an idiot, so what? You know?
I've got a question on that when you're talking about therapy. What did that teach you? What did you come to terms with about yourself through that kind of experience that you went through?
That's probably need another minute, but can you tell me what you kind of thought of? Yeah.
So for me, right, I've come to terms with myself as I've grown older and older. It is weird too, because you mentioned about overthinking, and I think it's the same thing for me. I understand how my brain works a little bit better now, you know, like I understand that if you present to me a situation, I will take so much time trying to figure out that situation, even when it's a simple situation. Yeah. It could be like, boom, 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 get over it. But it's like, no, I'm going to try to figure out as much as I can, even to the detriment of myself, you know, to make sure that situation turns out good and proper. you know, and I think it comes in different forms, you know. Sometimes it comes in just processing emotions, you know. Like recently I've been going through a tough time, and like usually I'll just be like, everyone asks me, you okay? I'm like, no, I'm fine, because I'm so used to making sure everyone else is fine, because that's just the pressure that I put myself when I was a kid to make sure my family was okay. So they ask me if I'm okay. I'm like, yeah, of course I'm okay, even if I'm not, because I don't want them to worry. And I've come to terms with that understanding about myself. So now I'm allowing myself to be more open when it comes to emotions. You know, like I don't have to be, even if I know it's difficult for me to open up, I know my friends want to be there for me. So now, like, even so that comes to levels of that self-awareness, it's like, okay, cool. I'm self-awareness about myself, that I tend to just kind of shut down and kind of deal with stuff myself. But it kind of pushes people away, because people want to be there for you, and they want to care about you. So it's like, okay, I've come to terms of opening up and letting them see me when I'm vulnerable, and be like, actually, no, I'm not great right now, but I'll be okay, and letting them give them opportunity to help me, because they want to do that as friends, you know?
That's a very good shot, because what I was also thinking even before you said all this was therapy actually taught me that it's okay to ask for help, you know? Ask for help from your therapist. That starts with that, obviously, but then because you kind of understand that, there are people out there to help me, you know, if I'm not having an okay day, if I'm not having an okay life, you know, there's people out there that, I mean, they care about me on a fine, obviously therapy is an exchange of energy, but then that also taught me that, you know, whoever I am friends with, probably there's that relatability that probably to an extent person A is also going through the same thing person I'm going through. So I'm going to try and be, you know, more open to other people about my thoughts and feelings the same way. If I can be open with my therapist about my thoughts and feelings, I can start opening up to my friends and tell them what I'm truly feeling. So just feeling more okay to open up, ask people for help, and
So you mentioned quite a few times soul therapy and all these different things there, and I know we've had this conversation about spirituality and religion and all these different aspects, and for me, right, and okay, so for me it kind of all started when I started meditating, right? When I started meditating, I started looking at all these different esoteric ways to view things. So it wasn't just like the basic kind of like known knowledge. It was like, cool, what else is out there in the world? What is some of the stuff that I don't understand about the world that exists, and how can I implement that into my life? So it was like a lot of therapy, a lot of Carl Jung, a lot of all these different psychologists that looked at stuff from the kind of third world, right? I know we spoke about this. We spoke about spirituality, we spoke about religion. Can you first break down to me, how do you look at spirituality? What does that mean to you? What does that word mean to you? And also, like, how does that relate to religion and all that stuff for you?
So I grew up Hindu. I mean, I still associate as a Hindu. That's because obviously growing up, like my family is hardcore Hindu. So every Sunday we have to go to the temple, we have to pray. Every Mondays, Thursdays, Fridays, I'm vegetarian. So I would say in those respects, I am very much still religious, because I try to go to the temple as often as I can. Maybe not every week, like how my parents would want me to go to, but I try. I maintain that kind of contact, that bond, and I still I'm vegetarian, you know this. But I would say that lately, interestingly, I think I'm more spiritual than I am religious, because obviously I'm praying. Yes, I'm reciting mantras that I think are religious mantras, but I don't know if I'm praying to a Hindu god. I think I might be praying to the universe.
What does spirituality mean to you? What is the definition of it?
I think everyone's definition of spirituality is a bit different, but I think my definition of spirituality is just energy. I think what you want is what you get. I think if you tell the universe you want something, for example, it kind of gives it to you. But I also think spirituality for me is kind of a little bit like religion, because there's still a higher power. It doesn't have to be God, but it can just be a higher power. It can be the universe, can be someone up there, you know. It doesn't have to be God. So I think that's my personal definition of spirituality. I think it's just about, you know, like I said, energy, having different chakras, knowing what they mean, you know, what kind of phase you're in your life and which chakras you're activating. Like, I think those things for me are what I associate more with spirituality.
Can you break that down for me? Like, are you in depth? Like, so what are the different chakras?
No, I could not tell you that in depth. I know a couple. I know your crown chakra is kind of like what you have to always aspire to kind of open up to. Because I feel like when you reach that state of enlightenment where most religions want you to get there, it's that enlightenment phase that it's like you're activating your crown chakra, you're finally like up there. Most religions say that once you activate that crown chakra, you're like at heaven, you know. So it's quite hard I think it's quite hard as a human being a lot of human beings probably don't get there quite easily, but that's probably everyone's kind of dream, I would say. But yeah, you obviously have your heart chakra, kind of like it's really interesting. I tell you this because the different chakras that you have in your body also influence the relationships that you have with other people. So I used to, again, my soul coach used to tell me this. She told me that, oh, you know, when you're young and when you kind of like younger, you have more like clubbing friends. But when you're much older, like for example, conversations like me and you, it kind of activates more of your like heart chakra, because I can club with you, but I can also, you know, I can dance with you, I can have a laugh with you, but then I can also be deep with you. And that's also kind of like, it ties back into my friendships as well. I kind of want to try as much as I can to make heart chakra friends, people that I can do everything with, be deep with, have fun with, just that whole package. That's, yeah, I'm not like very in-depth of what chakra does what, but I know some of the main bits and yeah.
Let me spin the question then. Let me look at it from a different perspective then. What are some of the practical things you've learned from spirituality? Because I know you speak to your soul coach. What are some of the things that they've told you they've actually applied to your life that's actually helped you?
Yeah.
And people can actually take and actually, even though it's kind of like spiritual and it kind of like hard for them to understand, that when they apply it to their life, actually has like practical applications.
I think for me, I can probably only think of one at the moment, but I think for me, it's like, again, tying back into energy, the universe, a higher power, but also make manifestation. This may sound very, very cheesy, but I write a vision letter to myself. That's very practical, right? Everyone can write a letter to themselves. So what I do is every 6 months, it's long enough for you to kind of forget about it, but it's also short enough that you can imagine what your next 6 months is going to look like. So I write a letter to myself that says that I'm talking in future tense, if that makes sense. Like I would say like, I am back in Jakarta, I live with my family and I'm having the best family life. I have the best of friends here. I have a partner who loves me, XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. Like I write about my future self. For example, today, like let's assume the New Year's 1st of Jan, you would write it for maybe 30th of June or something. You don't open it at all. You kind of you write it, you forget about it, you keep it in a random envelope in your room, or you put it in your laptop and you just put it in some random folder so that you don't open it. 6 months later, you will be shocked to actually, I mean, I don't know about how most people would apply it, but I would say that a lot of whatever I write in my vision letter actually comes true. I would say like, oh my God, like I wanted this and it came true. But also I wanted this, it came true, but not in the way I wanted it to be. But as an example, I want a job that pays me XK of money. I got the job, but it just doesn't pay me that amount of money. If that makes sense. Like, yeah, you know, it's just, that's one of the practical things I've learned from the universe, spirituality, manifestation. Just if you know what you want and you can be specific and you can visualize what you want, I think it's very easy for you to get whatever you want.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it works? Because I'm always fascinated by why you think it works. Because it does work. Manifestation and all these things does work. But like, why do you think it's because we want those things internally and so we chase those things even if we don't know it, we're still kind of going on that path? Why do you think it works? I'm trying to find out.
That's very, very interesting. I think as human beings, we kind of can predict. I don't think when we're writing vision letters to ourselves 6 months like ahead of our lives, we're not writing unimaginable things, right? We're not saying that I want to be president. You're not going to write that down. So I think manifestation, manifestation works only if you kind of know what to expect again as well, you know? I think that's why it works. Like there's something about that power that maybe us human beings don't actually understand. And I cannot even tell you because I also don't probably understand it. But then I do think that a lot of times it's just what we want and amplify it a little bit. And I think subconsciously, even though we want it, we will subconsciously again do like small things that go towards that decision, and then you actually get it, like you said, probably because of your own hard work. But then I also think there's an element of fate, an element of, again, it's magic. I don't know how to explain you. I think it's just magic. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I believe in that too, because I feel like for me there's so many levels to this, but I feel like for me, right, at first it starts off with like, okay, like fate. I totally believe in fate. I think I was put here for a reason, destined for something. I think the fact that I believe that is self-fulfilling prophecy, where I act like that. I kind of spread love as much as I can where I go. I'm genuine, all of these stuff there. But I think also the path that I've been on my life, there's certain moments in my life that I look back, I'm like, there's no way that would have happened that way unless I was destined to do this. And it's like that I can see the pattern of my life looking, I can see it going through. I think there's totally that kind of humility that I have, that I don't understand anything about life. There's so many things I look out into the world, I'm like, I have no clue what's going on here. This is like, and I open myself up to that. And I think once you open yourself up to that possibility that you don't know everything about life, you allow life or the universe, what do you call it, to take hold of that and kind of guide you on your way. I think that's so important. And I think even for me to answer my own question about how practically that can be applied.
Wait, pause. Before it's so interesting that you said that guiding factor. That's another way of me viewing religion and spirituality to me. So obviously some people, I genuinely think it's important for me, I don't know about other people, but I would say for me to have that guiding factor. So for me, it could be God, it could be the universe, but it's just that also kind of what helps the magic of manifestation move forward. Because if I believe in God or if I believe in the universe, then I know that there's someone out there watching out for me, and that will probably like happen. So it's also that element of making sure that guiding factor. It's kind of why manifestations sometimes I feel like come true. It's your fate. It's not fate, it's faith. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. It's faith, faith in something. It's for some people who don't believe in religion or God or whatever, it's faith in themselves. But for me personally, because I believe in that, I think it's faith in that someone out there is like looking out for me and giving me what I want, but also making sure I work hard to make sure that I get what I want to.
100%. And I think that hard work, it's like meeting them at the middle. Is that Michelangelo painting where you have to both meet them at the middle, because I feel like you can have all these ideas of what you want, but if you don't have the faith to, I'm actually working hard for a reason, to have that kind of tunnel vision that I'm doing this without any doubt. And I think that's what faith allows. It removes your doubt, because I think most of the time we stop because we doubt ourselves. I think Shakespeare said, doubt, stops us from getting so much things, because it's true. It's like we doubt ourselves, we didn't even try, but I think, even for me, right, like the way I apply that in my life is, you're making fun of it earlier, but it's that kind of like schedule thing that I have, right? Because it's like, I know that if I just follow that based on what I want, based on what I think is possible, and I just keep on doing that for a long period of time, I'm going to get my desired result, and I think that's so important, Okay, and to wrap this up, to kind of bring this to a close, because we've been going for a while, I think that we're both in this kind of like interesting time in our life, right? Where we're kind of reaching a certain age, but we're also having these expectations to get to certain milestones and to do certain things, and it's like that kind of feeling that comes with, I think, everyone, especially at our age, that you have to do this by this age, you have to do this by this age, you have to have this type of job, and the biggest one is you have to have your life figured out by this age, or certain stuff like that. How do you manage that feeling? Do you have that feeling? Do you relate to that kind of like pressure? And also, how do you manage that feeling for you?
I think it's really interesting you said this, because this is actually me and my mom just spoke about this today, which is crazy that we're actually talking about this today as well. I spoke to my mom before you spoke to me. But 100%. Like, I feel so pressured, especially being an Indian and, just Indian parents in general. You want to get married at X age, you need to make sure you have X money in your bank account before you get married. And I feel like throughout my life, I've always planned, like when I was much younger, okay, Meg, by 25, you'll probably already be married. By 28, you'll have kids. I'm 27, man, and I'm not even married. And I don't think I'm going to be having kids anytime soon as well. But I think for me over here, yes, you probably have all these milestones are good because it keeps yourself in check. I would say it's always good I want this by this age. I think those are really healthy things to obviously have, but I feel that at the end of the day, you can never plan as much as you want to. Like that's what gives me the comfort that no matter how much you plan, if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. There's nothing else you can do, Sometimes you need to let things take its own course. You need to let life takes its own course. Like, you knew that you didn't know that the thing that that's happening to you right now, was going to happen. You did plan for it. But obviously you probably had goals like by X age, I want to do this, So I think it's just plan, but having comfort in knowing that no matter how much you plan, you just need to go with the flow sometimes. And that's something I need to tell myself every day. Because today I was having a convo with my mom. My mom was like, I told my mom, like, when I go back home, I want to do this. And then this is the age I want to do this. Da, 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 da. And she was like, Meg, okay, you're planning great, but you do know, like, whatever you're planning, chances are, like, it's not, it's not going to come on the month, on the date, on whatever you want. So just stop planning, live. Just be happy. Just live in your present moment. Just go with the flow and see where life takes you. As cliche as that sounds.
No, that's perfect. And I think, like, we started this by talking about how change is coming for all of us. And I think that perspective is so important when you're going through change. Just to let go. You can have certain milestones in your mind. You can have certain things you want to do, but life will surprise you. Life will almost always surprise you. And to being able to adapt to that, being able to adapt to that surprise, being able to adapt to all the things that come at you, and building that over and over again. Like certain milestones are great, and it's all, like you said, it's good to have that kind of like guiding light. But if you're too focused on that, you miss the details, you miss being present, you miss these kind of like simple moments which make up your life. I think these moments will make up your life, not the milestones, but the moments that you do and the things that you're doing whilst you're waiting for those milestones to come. I think that's so important. Okay, so a question I always ask everyone while they're on this podcast is that when you're looking out into the sky or looking out into the skyline as we have it, beautiful views, what do you think is the meaning of life?
Jesus Christ.
What do you think is the meaning of life? And what do you... I know, it's terrible, I know. But I want to surprise you with that question, actually. Because I want you to know what you think just from now, what you feel. Doesn't have to be right. There's no right answer. Everyone always gives their own perspective. But I think from where you are now, from your perspective, from your opinion, from the life that you've lived, what would you say is the meaning of life?
Just, like, I don't know. Stop chasing, just be happy. I think that, like, as cliche as this sounds, like, happiness. Sometimes we look at ourselves and we're like, what is life? Like, what are we chasing? Every day we're waking up, we're doing this job, we're doing that job, but are we happy? We're meeting this friend, we're meeting that friend, I'm dating someone, I'm not dating someone, like, am I happy? At the end of the day, just everything that you're doing on an everyday basis, am I happy? I think it's just, meaning of life is just being happy. At the end of the day, I always believe that, from my religion, we believe that, we pass away, our bodies get burned, whatever, and then you don't bring anything to heaven or hell, or you don't kind of when you get reincarnated, as we believe in my religion, you come back as a new human being. So what is the point of chasing, money this, money that, person this, person that? Just be happy try to be happy with what you have. Just try to be contentment.
100%. Okay, last question.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for me? I've been asking you questions the whole time.
What is your meaning of life?
Oh, gosh.
I don't know if anyone's ever asked you this, but...
They have asked me this before. I think it always changes.
Okay, let me change that a bit. What is your meaning of life, today, considering whatever you're going through? I'm sure the meaning of life must have shifted or reflected a little bit. So what is your meaning of life as to what you think of today? Yeah. I
think the experience that I've gone through now and what I'm going through has made me aware of time in a kind of acute sense. It made me aware of two things. It's like never plan, because you can have plans and things will just kind of sidetrack you from anywhere. But also made me aware of time, of also the things that I want. Like you said, like we have limited time here, and at the end of the day, if we don't chase the things that we want, if we don't do the things that we really care about, and we just keep pushing it forward and forward, then we never get the time to do it. And so now I'm kind of reflecting on that, and I think that's why this has been such a transformative change for me, or even I felt it more deeper than I would have, because I'm really giving myself the opportunity to reflect on the choices that I made before. Coming back to what we talked about at the top of the podcast, it's like the decision I made led me down this path, and then maybe the road is different now, but I'm now looking back and being like, okay, how do I feel about that? And what does that mean for me? And I think the meaning of life for me now is like, okay, cool, like look at your life and look at the decisions you made. Look, are you like, be happy with that? Kind of like accept that, and like be able to like look forward, and the next choice you make and the next thing that you do, make sure that you're okay with that. And like no matter how that turns out, be happy with that. I think the meaning of my life is just building on the things that I've done, building on the things that I do, doing more of this, trying to connect with people, trying to find people and like find the beauty in people. And like, as cliche as that sounds, but it's like doing the things that that internally that I know I want to do, that I can do, that I delayed previously because I was like, you know what, I'm going to focus on money, I'm going to focus on stability and, you know, career and all those things, and delaying that, you know, kind of like taking that kind of like dam out, you know, like not stop delaying and stop having like all these plans for the future, and start living in the moment and start doing these things in the moment more and more. You know, I think that's so important to me.
Thank you. Yeah.
First off, thank you so much for doing this. You've been amazing. This has been crazy. We've got to the end. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Meg. This has been brilliant. Did you have a good time?
Yeah, I did. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for giving me the important, like, you don't really realize that sometimes, like, oh, what you say, that's a level of importance. So thank you for having me here, because it gives me the importance, you know, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense, yeah. Of course. I mean, this is why I do this thing, because I see this in my friends all the time, and I'm like, no, actually, they need to see it in themselves, which is why I want a video and you can watch it back, because I know that it's important for you to see that, to see you yourself the way I see you. And I think that's what literally I've been able to, you know, kind of like bring out with these questions and these whatever, building the set, building all this kind of pressure around it, is giving you the opportunity to say the things that you really have inside of you, that you say all the time, that you think of it all the time, but to focus on it.
Yeah.
And so thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Until next time, peace.